Ollie promised you a monster whose gaze could turn a man to stone. She wasn't exaggerating. This is the story of Perseus, a hero born from a prophecy no one could escape, armed with a mirror instead of a sword. It begins, like so many of these stories do, with a king who heard his own future, and hated every word of it. A king who tried to lock fate away in a bronze tower. Fate, as it turned out, does not stay locked up for long. This is the true story of Perseus and Medusa. King Acrisius of Argos asked an oracle a simple question: would he ever have a grandson? The answer nearly broke him. The prophecy was exact, and merciless, that grandson would grow up to kill him. So Acrisius did what frightened kings so often do. He decided the safest child was the one that never got born. He locked his only daughter, Danae, inside a tower of solid bronze, sealed from every door and every suitor. But bronze walls, it turns out, cannot lock out a god. Zeus came to her not as a man, but as a shower of golden light pouring through a crack in the ceiling, and Danae was no longer alone in her tower. 9 months later, she held a son. She named him Perseus. Acrisius heard a baby crying behind those bronze walls, and his blood went cold. He could not bring himself to spill his own family's blood directly. So instead, he chose a crueler mercy. He sealed Danae and baby Perseus inside a wooden chest, and had it thrown into the open sea, leaving their fate to the waves instead of his own hands. For days, the little chest drifted, tossed by storms, small against an enormous ocean. It finally washed ashore on the island of Seriphos, where a humble fisherman named Dictys pulled it from the surf. He raised the boy as his own, and Perseus grew up on that small island, never once suspecting the size of the destiny waiting for him. Seriphos had a king too, one far less kind than Dictys, Polydectes, and he had his eye on Danae. Perseus, grown now into a strong young man, stood between Polydectes and what the king wanted, and the king despised him for it. So Polydectes set a trap disguised as a favor. At a grand feast, he asked every guest for an extravagant gift, knowing Perseus, proud and cornered, would offer something he could not possibly deliver. Perseus, without thinking, promised the one gift no man had ever survived fetching, the head of Medusa the Gorgon. Polydectes could not have smiled wider. He had just sent his rival to a monster whose stare alone had turned countless men to stone. What the king did not count on was exactly how much help the gods were willing to give this particular hero. Athena had been watching Perseus since the day he was born, and she was not about to let him walk into a Gorgon's den unarmed. She gave him a shield polished to a mirror shine, bright enough to show him Medusa's reflection without ever meeting her eyes directly. Hermes, quick and clever as ever, gave him a pair of winged sandals, light enough to carry him across any ocean in the world. From Hades himself, the god who ruled the dead, came a helmet with a stranger gift still: whoever wore it could not be seen by anyone at all. A curved sword sharp enough to cut through scales no ordinary blade could pierce, and a magic pouch that could safely hold anything placed inside it, no matter how dangerous, completed the gifts. One by one, an ordinary fisherman's son was quietly becoming something else entirely. Now fully armed, Perseus needed only one more thing: to actually find out where the Gorgons lived. Only one place on earth held that secret: three ancient sisters called the Greek, who had shared a single eye between them since the beginning of time. They passed that one eye back and forth, hand to hand, taking turns to see the world at all. Perseus waited for the exact moment the eye left one sister's hand and had not yet reached the next, and simply plucked it out of the air. He offered a simple trade, the location of the Gorgons, in exchange for their eye back. The sisters, blind and desperate, told him everything he needed to know. Deep on a rocky, wind-battered island, Perseus finally found what he had been sent to kill, three monstrous sisters called the Gorgons. Two of them, Athena and Euryale, were immortal, impossible to kill by any weapon ever made. Only the third sister could die at all. Her name was Medusa, and a single glance into her eyes turned any living thing instantly to stone. The ground around her lair proved it. Statues of soldiers, and adventurers braver than wise, stood frozen mid-step, exactly where they'd made the fatal mistake of looking up. Perseus knew better. He never looked at Medusa directly, not even once. He watched only her reflection, glowing faintly in his mirrored shield. Guided only by that reflection, gliding silently on his winged sandals, he crept closer while she slept. Watching only the mirror, never the monster, Perseus raised his curved sword. It was over in a single motion, guided entirely by reflection instead of sight. From the moment Medusa fell, something impossible happened. Bursting up from where she had been, in a blaze of light, sprang a magnificent winged horse, Pegasus. No one had known he was there at all, hidden inside her all along, waiting to be born into the world. Perseus sealed Medusa's head safely inside his magic pouch, careful never to let it slip into view, and prepared to run. Because the moment her sisters woke, and realized what had happened, they would not be forgiving. Athena and Euryale woke to a scream of fury the whole island could hear, and gave chase immediately. But Perseus simply lowered the helmet Hades had given him, and vanished completely from sight. The immortal sisters tore the sky apart searching for a hero who was no longer there to find. On his winged sandals, invisible and unseen, Perseus soared for home, carrying the one weapon in the world that could turn any enemy to stone. He had no idea yet just how useful that weapon was about to become. Flying home across the sea, Perseus passed a kingdom by the coast, and heard something that stopped him mid-flight, a woman's voice, calling for help from the rocks below. Her name was Andromeda, chained to a sea cliff and left for the waves. Her mother, Queen Cassiopeia, had once boasted that her daughter's beauty outshone even the sea nymphs themselves, a claim the god Poseidon did not take kindly to. In his anger, Poseidon sent a monstrous sea serpent named Cetus to terrorize the kingdom's shores, and an oracle declared only one sacrifice would satisfy it, the princess herself. Perseus landed on the cliff just as the water began to churn, and Cetus rose from the waves, enormous and unstoppable. He didn't reach for his sword. He reached into his pouch instead. One glimpse of Medusa's head, and the sea monster that had terrorized an entire kingdom simply turned to solid, harmless stone. Perseus freed Andromeda from her chains, and by the time they reached her father's palace, the two of them had already decided they were not going to say goodbye. Perseus returned to Seriphos with a bride, a winged horse waiting in legend, and one item still left in his pouch. He found his mother hiding in a temple, fending off Polydectes' unwanted attention exactly as she had been the day he left. Perseus walked straight into the king's own throne room and asked, one final time, whether Polydectes still wanted to see the gift he demanded. This time, Polydectes actually got exactly what he had asked for. It was the last thing he ever saw. Perseus made kind old Dictys the new king of Seriphos, and gave Medusa's head to the one god who had believed in him from the very beginning. Athena mounted it on her shield forever after. As for the prophecy that had started it all, it found Perseus anyway, gently, and by accident, at a discus-throwing competition years later, far from anyone's plotting. Acrisius, watching from the crowd, was struck by a stray throw meant for no one at all. Some fates, it turns out, cannot be outrun, only postponed. Perseus never wanted that ending. But even a hero blessed by every god on Olympus cannot rewrite what the oracles have already spoken. He went on to become a wise and celebrated king, with Andromeda beside him, for the rest of his long life. When Perseus and Andromeda finally passed from this world, the gods placed them among the stars forever, a hero and his princess, shining side by side every single night. Cassiopeia and Cepheus joined them there too, and so did Pegasus, the winged horse who had been waiting inside a monster the whole time. Ollie loves this part best of all. On a clear night, you can still look up and find the whole story, written across the sky. But she says the next story might be her favorite yet, a hero, a ball of string, and a monster half man and half bull, waiting at the center of an inescapable maze. Thank you so much for watching this third tale in our Greek mythology series. Until next time, keep watching, keep wondering, and we'll see you back on Mount Olympus very soon.